Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.
Well, no, Lucinda, I told you if you put a saddle on him, it's going to hurt his back. Well, he's not going to tell you if he minds he's a cat. I'll talk to you later. I'm at the studio to record Citation Needed.
Well. Look who it is.
If it isn't Mr. Rerun.
The recycler himself.
What are you guys talking about?
Okay, like you don't know. This week's essay, obviously.
Yeah. It's about Christian video games, but you just did a talk at Free Flow about Christian video games.
You're giving us your research leavings, man.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I included a bunch of stuff that wasn't in my talk at Free Flow, though technically our essays are much shorter than the Free Flow talk was. Plus for that, I did slides. But what did you come on, Eli? You had a fucking chat bot write your last essay, and Heath does Heath stuff.
It's fair. Yeah, he's got you guys there.
No. He's not getting away with this. So just so you know, Noah, for next time, we'll all be using our conference presentations for our essay material.
Yeah, you better believe it.
Okay, has any of you guys ever given a talk at a conference?
Not the point.
Yeah, okay, fair. Lesson learned.
Fine.
So what would your talk...
I was actually hoping you would write something for me.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. Because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Eli Bosnick, and I'll be jerking your joystick tonight, but other quarter jockeys are here to ride this digital wave with me. First up, three men who aim to free the world from religion's corner trap: Heath, Noah, and Cecil.
Yeah, you got to block religion and then throw
right,
it.
Exactly. But honestly, though, once you've convinced them to join you in Mortal Kombat, you've already won.
Right. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. Listener, Christian video game makers are funded by 10% of their audience's income. Do you give us 10% of your income? No.
Jesus Christ.
You fucking don't. You don't. But you know who gets infinitely closer? Our patrons, who give us 100% more than nothing. That's what most of you give us. And that's why abortion is illegal now. So if you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Cecil,
Thank God it's out of
what
the way.
person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about Christian video games.
And Noah, you limited yourself to a mere 7 pages of Christian video game facts, which, as someone who saw the research for your talk, is some Sisyphean heroism. Are you ready to dash us upon the cliffs of your notes?
I am ready, player one.
Okay. Well, given your obsession with old Nintendos and your job making fun of Christian stuff, it seems weird to even ask, but I guess we have to get into the essay somehow. So why are we talking about Christian video games?
Yeah, so back in March, I did this talk at the Florida Free Thought Conference in Orlando about the history of Christian video games. And ever since then, I've had a lot of people ask if I was going to be posting that talk online or otherwise sharing it. I'm not. Sorry. But the combination of that demand and me not wanting to do a whole bunch more research got me to thinking about a perfect topic this would be for a Citation Needed essay.
Yeah, I was going to use my talk at the Florida Free Thought Conference for an essay, but nobody even invited me to that conference.
Yeah, no, they didn't, unfortunately. Now, I should start off clarifying my definition here, because if you look up Christian video games on Wikipedia, you will see a bunch of greedy Christians desperately trying to lay claim to every game with a droopy plus sign in it somewhere. They try to claim Lord of the Rings games. They claim Doom because, hell. They claim Castlevania because, holy water. They claim The Legend of Zelda because in the original, one of the shields that you could upgrade to had a cross on it. But when I say Christian video games, I mean games that are designed to teach people about the Christian worldview or reinforce Christian beliefs. Just having hell imagery or being inspired by Christian mythology isn't enough.
Also, we get Tetris, too, is this Christian video game. If you flip over the T1 and you put it on the I1, that's God's cross. Fucking Christian. Fuck you.
For the first decade or so of the commercial video game history, that's effectively 1972 to 1981, games existed in two spaces. The majority of the money was in arcade cabinets, but you also had home video game consoles pretty much right away. Now, these are what we call Generation 1 game consoles or dedicated consoles. What that means is that they're not programmable. Whatever game or games your Gen 1 console played were programmed into it to begin with when you bought it. Which means basically that if you were going to design a video game, it had to appeal to the broadest possible number of people. There was no room in the market for games aimed at a niche audience at this point, but that would start to change in the early 80s with the rise of home computers democratizing video game design.
Man, tells you a lot about your religion when even you have to admit our path to eternal paradise isn't broadly appealing enough. Huh?
Right? Yeah. Now, I should admit up front here that there's a bit of a historical black hole when it comes to the earliest computer games. A ton of shit was just being programmed out of somebody's spare bedroom, copied in their garage, distributed in envelopes at local stores, then shared through rampant piracy, and then reworked until you wound up with the source code of Theseus. In other words, a huge percentage of the early computer games are lost, and a lot of what we have is difficult to attribute to a particular programmer, company, or even year. So it's entirely possible that the first commercially available Christian video game is somewhere in that black hole. But the earliest one we know about comes from 1982, and it was called Bible Bites.
Coincidentally, also the name of my Christianity-themed restaurant that served hors d'oeuvres made with wheat that wasn't planted next to oats.
Oh, yeah. You got to try them. They're called hot cross buns. They're so good.
So Bible Bites, that's Bites with a Y, was originally released for an absolute piece of shit computer called the TRS-80, which was a Radio Shack branded computer that boasted a whopping 4 kilobytes of memory.
Yikes.
And a CPU that clocked in at 1.79 megahertz.
I'm a big fan of Radio Shack.
It was a junker even by the standards of its day, so much so that it was universally known as the Trash 80, which makes it kind of the perfect place for the Christian video game industry to start.
Yeah, the Kevin Sorbo of computers. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, there
Right.
it is.
Right. Anyway, so Bible Bites was a collection of what we'd now call mini games, what we then called games. They had titles like Noah's Ark, The Sermon on the Mount, The Deceptively Promising Moses' Rod. Most of them, though, were word games, but a few of them were graphical. You could buy them individually or all together. You could either get them on cassette tape.
Wow.
We haven't moved on to the cutting edge technology of floppy disks quite yet. Or you could buy a book that had the source code and you could actually just type it in yourself.
Holy shit.
So that you could play Hangman with Bible words.
Hangman. Okay, if the guy gets crucified when you lose, I think I kind of like it.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
God, imagine buying a game so incomplete you have to code it yourself. Who made it? Project Red?
The video game deep cut. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, of course, around the same time, we also have the rise of third-party software companies for consoles. You can hear all about that on the Atari Video Game Burial episode that we did back in 2020. But suffice to say, by 1982, capitalism realized that anybody who wanted to could put together a cheap-ass cartridge that played on the Atari 2600 and make a few bucks, even if the game sucked. So naturally, a couple of Christian games showed up. 2 of them, to be exact, The Music Machine in 1982 and Red Sea Crossing in 1983. Incidentally, these are 2 of the most valuable games in the world for Atari collectors. The last time they sold at auction, they sold for $5,000 and $10,000 respectively. Yeah, this despite the fact that they were so horrible that it would be pointless to even describe the gameplay. Just imagine generic bad 8-bit game and you've nailed it. So ultimately, this anybody who knows how to 1 and 0 can make a game shit had to stop for the industry to survive. So when Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, into the American market, they did so with a system in place to try to ensure that only games approved by Nintendo could play on that system. And in addition to rules about game quality, Nintendo also had this list of puritanical rules that games had to conform to so as not to piss off brutish parents. Rules like no profanity, no alcohol, no drug use. And since the Japanese executives weren't about to try to parse what was reverent and what was blasphemous in the minds of American evangelicals, no religious content.
Okay, deplatforming works is what I learned from that just now.
Yeah, right. Deplatformers is a great genre.
Right?
Shows what they know. I believed in Pokemon so much more than I ever believed in God. Like, so much more.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, some religious symbolism slipped through, but mostly they were super fucking serious about it. So much so that when a popular DuckTales game was brought to the U.S. market from Europe, they reprogrammed the game to take the crosses off the coffins in the morgue level.
Yikes.
But inevitably, Christians looked at the extreme care Nintendo was taking not to offend them and called it persecution. Because because putting crosses into video games, yes, that's blasphemous, but taking crosses out of video games is even more blasphemous. So they demanded their own video games that promoted their religion and acknowledged the divinity of Christ.
I like that this bit of outrage required someone to actually play DuckTales on 2 continents. Like, how are you fucking kidding me? It's before the internet, man. Some asshole had to play it in fucking England and then come over here and play it here.
Yep. And we demand a 10% tithe from Scrooge.
Right,
We want 10% of that swimming pool. Come on.
little kiddie pools worth of gold coins, yeah. Now, for their part, Nintendo didn't relent, but a third-party software company called Color Dreams saw the hole in the market and decided to fill it with third-party, unauthorized Christian games. So they rebranded as Wisdom Tree Games, and they set to work hacking the NES's security. First, they needed to find a way around the built-in lockout chip, which was tough. The best they managed to do was they sent a high voltage to the system as it was doing its verification thing, and that would overwhelm the system and allow their games to play. Sometimes. Getting Wisdom Tree Games to work was a crapshoot for Nintendo games.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nintendo's were tough too, just the regular ones. So I guess for the Wisdom Tree, you got to blow through the shirt and believe. Really
right.
believe.
Right. With contrition in your heart. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And podcast listener, if you're surprised that a Christian company's first move is copyright infringement, you are not familiar with Christian media.
Yeah. No shit. But even after they did that, they still had to figure out where to sell them. Right? Nintendo had a clause in their vendor's contract that forbade the sale of unauthorized games, and selling online wasn't a thing yet. But luckily for Wisdom Tree, Christians have a weird, stupid parallel universe for their kids that has its own schools and its own museums and its own amusement parks and its own stores. And Christian bookstores, which would never carry something as sinful as authorized Nintendo games, while Pac-Man had ghosts in it. They didn't give a fuck about that clause, and they happily stocked whatever intermittently functional piece of shit games Wisdom Tree was willing to slap a Christian sheen onto.
You have to walk around some church basement calling out what you're looking for, like you're looking to buy acid at a Grateful Dead show. You're like, trips, nugs,
Platformer?
looking for nugs.
Shooter? Now,
Goo balls? What? That just feels like you're lying about stuff.
Now, ultimately, they released 7 games for the NES and another 5 for the Game Boy, but there are 2 in particular that I want to highlight for their awfulness. Well, one is actually a 3-game combination called Bible Adventures that included a Noah's Ark game, a David and Goliath game that was mostly about finding sheep and was almost indistinguishable from the Noah's Ark game, and a Baby Moses game.
This is so bad.
Where you have to sneak baby Moses past the Pharaoh's men by carrying him over your head like he was a fucking vegetable in Super Mario Brothers 2. And yes, you also, within the game, threw the baby Moses like you throw the vegetables in Super Mario Brothers 2.
Amazing.
collectively, Bible Adventures was ranked as the 68th worst game of all time by Games Radar and the 19th worst ever by Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Yeah, but it's only the 11th worst game where you can throw a baby, according to Heath Enright's Baby Throwing Quarterly. So,
What?
Now, the other one that I wanted to highlight is an almost impressively uninspired game called Sunday Fun Day, probably the most notorious game in the history of Christian video games. So before their expedient transition to Christianity, this company was cranking out half-ass games for PC, and they were most well known for this game called Menace Beach. Now, it was just a generic beat 'em up, but to the extent that it was known, it was known for its controversial cutscenes where you're trying to rescue your girlfriend from a gang quick before all her clothes rot off. So, like, your reward for beating the level basically was seeing an increasingly naked image of a bitmap chick chained to a wall. Yes, that's the company that found Jesus when there was a buck in it.
If they made a Christian game today like that, it would be the same scenario, but the person tied up would be Jerry Falwell's pool boy.
And grandma's memory of him would be the thing that rots away, I feel like, right?
Yeah, right. Anyway, so they took that game, they swapped out the decreasingly clad girlfriend with a fully dressed Sunday school teacher. They changed the plot from trying to rescue your girlfriend to trying to make it to Sunday school on time. They made absolutely no effort to explain why gang members were trying to keep you from Sunday school and had you continue to beat them up on your way. And they re-released it as Sunday Fun Day. And lest anyone mistake their conversion as genuine, I also want to point out that they would later release that very same game in Japan as a full-on pornographic game called Miss Peach World.
Really?
Ooh, all right. Well, I've got some Googling to do, so while I stretch my wrists, let's take a little break for Apropos of Nothing.
Mr. Nintendo, thanks so much for taking the time.
My name's not Mr. Nintendo.
No need for modesty. Now, look, we here at Christian Bible Inc. want to know what we can do to lift this silly embargo on religious games.
Look, we really appreciate the offer, but we here at Nintendo have a core set of values that we cannot deviate from.
Yeah, and what are those? What are they?
Well, if you must know, our brand is settled around a few franchises. We have an Italian plumber who beats up turtles to get laid. We have a little boy's time traveling adventure where he often dies and has to fix the hellscape that he created by dying in an alternate timeline. And of course, pet slave fight until one of them passes out. Those are three of the biggest ones we have.
Okay, I see. And honestly, I respect it.
Okay, tell you what, I'll give you some major mentions in Bayonetta. How about that?
Who's Bayonetta?
She's a witch who uses her powers by losing her clothing for kids. It's a game for kids.
For kids, of course. For kids.
And we're back. When we left off, everything Christianity touches got worse, and I saw an opening for a 7th podcast. What happened next, Noah?
Okay, so to this point, I feel like I've understated the extent to which Christian games were almost always just thinly veiled reskinnings of existing shit, even though the last game I talked about was a literal reskinning of existing shit. But by and large, Christian parents didn't care about adding anything new. Their demand was all about taking shit out. Sinful shit. So like when Dance Dance Revolution got big, some Christian company came out with Dance Praise so that you could have all the same exciting and fun experiences without listening to lustful music like That's the Way I Like It and Kung Fu Fighting. The same company would a year or so later come out with Guitar Praise.
Okay, but Dance Dance Revolution, how is that not Dance Dance Revelation?
Right?
Seriously?
So good.
Oh,
So good.
I'm glad you're on our side, Heath. Your puns in Christian hands would be deadly. Deadly,
Right.
I say.
You
Anyways,
dance around scorpion horse locusts? That's not like I would play the shit out of that game.
So the next game I want to highlight, was maybe the most blatant reskinning in the history of Christian games. This game is called Super Noah's Ark 3D, and it also comes to us from Wisdom Tree Games. It's the only unauthorized game ever released for the Super Nintendo. And the way that they got around the lockout chip on that system gives you a great idea of the level of half-assery that they were willing to stoop to. In order to get Super Noah's Ark 3D to play, you had to insert an authorized game into the top of the cartridge and then plug that into your system.
Oh.
All right. What if we have our games wear a lion's skin on his head? Then they won't notice they're not real. That's the same vibe as the Christian version of everything.
Yeah,
I guess.
honestly.
So, that's what they're going for.
Man, world's first non-binary cartridge. I am surprised they let that one slip past the goalpost, man.
Right?
I'm very surprised.
Interesting. So in 1992, a dude by the name of John Carmack set off on a long career of redefining video games with a game called Wolfenstein 3D. It is known as the grandfather of first-person shooters. It pioneered the concept of shareware as a means of promoting independent games, but it's also all about running around a castle shooting Nazis, so Christians weren't allowed to play it, right? That's too violent. Plus, we're talking about Gen X Christians, so they have to grow up to be terrifyingly sympathetic to Nazism.
Okay, so this guy Carmack went on to make Hogwarts Legacy?
No.
after that?
Carmack is a good guy in this one. But the following year, Carmack's company, id Software, came out with the far more popular and far more advanced first-person shooter, Doom. And it was such a leap forward graphically that pretty much immediately Wolfenstein 3D was antiquated, which made it perfect for Wisdom Tree Games. So they go to id and they're like, hey, can we license the game engine from Wolfenstein and make a Christian version? And id Software was like, sure, man, knock yourselves out. And so they set about finding the laziest possible way to Christianize Wolfenstein.
Oh, the main hero gets a nose job and starts going by Wolf. Just
Jesus
Wolf.
Christ. Jesus Christ.
No.
Yikes.
So the first problem, of course, is that the game is a shooter. Kind of hard to take the violence out of a genre called first-person shooter. So what they did is they set it on Noah's Ark, and they armed you with the slingshot that you could use to shoot food at rowdy animals. And I guess the food was laced with God magic or whatever, because if you hit them, they would immediately fall asleep and stop causing a ruckus. So instead of running around a castle shooting Nazis, you ran around an ark roofying goats. It was more wholesome.
Right. Cool. Also, the animal shit just piles up like Tetris. So there's like a ticking clock and you have to like get done fast.
So when Christians try to craft their own games from the ground up, they don't do much better than this. I mean, because like at least there was a fun game hidden underneath all the Wisdom Tree half-assery with Super Noah's Ark 3D. But not so much with the next game I want to talk about, which is called, I shit you not, Captain Bible in Dome of Darkness.
Ooh.
So in this absolute treasure of a point-and-click adventure, you play as Captain Bible. Captain Bible works for the Bible Corps, which seems kind of inevitable given his name and rank, right?
I love the lazy writing. His team name has the same name as his hero name. Welcome to the League of Extraordinary Batmen. Like, what the fuck, man?
Oh, Cecil, I got some bad news for you about Gotham Knights, buddy. Don't turn that one on, okay? Don't.
At least they
don't
weren't
open
called
that
the
one.
Gotham Batmen, though. So the Bible Corps, as in this game, come across a futuristic city that's been covered over in a dome of darkness, and inside, evil aliens have stolen everyone's Bibles and started lying to them about the true path to salvation. So your job, if you choose to accept it, is to infiltrate the Dome of Darkness, find Bible verses at various computer terminals throughout the city. Apparently, Captain Bible couldn't be bothered to memorize any of those.
Why would they put them into computer? Yeah, okay.
See,
No, I don't know why I'm
not
asking
a lot
the
of
question.
why. This game doesn't hold up to a lot of why questions, Heath. And then you when you come across an alien, the alien will tell you a cyber lie. For example, it might say, well, God would never love an insignificant speck of protoplasm like you. And then you got to go through all of the Bible verses that you've collected and figure out which one refutes that lie. And then when you do, the alien dies. Now, there are two other games I want to talk about before we wrap up. One of them is from 2006. The other one is from the future. So we're going to start in 2006 with a game based on the Left Behind novel series. That was an uber popular post-apocalyptic torture porn series in the 90s and 2000s. So in 2006, the publisher decided to cash in with a video game. The game was called Left Behind Eternal Forces, and unlike most of its predecessors in the world of Christian video games, this one didn't exactly shy away from violence. It puts you in charge of the Tribulation Force. That's a group of Christian rebels in post-rapture New York who are fighting against the Antichrist, who Heath is very depressed to already know is named Nikolai Carpathia.
Yeah.
And your job in the game is to convert the bad guys to Christianity, or else kill them. It's like the Crusades, but with machine guns. So needless to say, this game stirred up a bit of controversy when it was released. American atheists called it, quote, a violent Christian video game that promotes religious bigotry and intolerance, end quote. And the Anti-Defamation League criticized its, quote, exclusivist religious system against Jews, end quote. The game's developers, Inspired Media Entertainment, argued, though, that the conversions in the game weren't depicted as forcible, even though your literal only other option was murdering the people, and that you actually lose spirit points for resorting to violence. And having a low spirit meter will cause allied units to defect or become neutral. So, killing everybody who disagrees with you is only supposed to be used occasionally.
Oh.
Okay, but the speed run, straight up genocide.
Absolute fucking genocide, yes. Now, as weak as that defense is, Inspired tried to legally enforce it. They famously sent cease and desist letters to a bunch of bloggers and online reviewers that talk shit about their game. I want to read you an excerpt from those cease and desist letters. Quote, your organization hosts a website that has information posted about Left Behind Eternal Forces. Unfortunately, there are many statements on your website which appear to be false or misleading. This type of misinformation may cause significant and irreparable harm to Left Behind Video Games, Inc. and must be removed. Left Behind Video Games, Inc. generally supports free speech in the media and understands how important it is to have various opinions presented for public consumption. It will not, however, tolerate the publication of information regarding its products that is false or misleading. End quote. So in light of all this controversy, pretty much every major retailer pulled the game from their shelves. So in order to get rid of the gazillion unsold copies, they thought, hey, you know where a game about violently changing the religion of people would go over really well? Iraq, during the American occupation.
What?
So they donated a bunch of unsold copies that were intended to be included in care packages for American soldiers, inevitably dubbed freedom packets, given the buzzwords of the day. But luckily, ABC News was able to get to the Department of Defense in time and say, hey, maybe you don't send games where you're supposed to kill or convert all the non-Christians that literally say, praise the Lord, whenever a non-Christian dies within the video game to the Muslim majority country we're occupying. And that plan was stopped.
Oh, maybe if it was called God of War Crimes, that'd be clever, but not like this. We're not doing it. God of War Crimes is what you should have called that.
Now, we don't know how much money the developers spent on the game, so we don't know how much they lost on the game, but it was at least $1 million. Might have been closer to $3 million. But despite its miserable commercial failure, the game wound up with 3 sequels. And the reason why kind of springboards us into the last game that I wanted to highlight. See, for normal video games, the people paying for the development of game B are, generally speaking, the people who bought game A, right? Like, you may get some investors here and there, but to do so, you basically got to show them you can make a game that people are willing to buy, unless you're making a Christian game, in which case you just have to sucker some church or some Christian philanthropist or whatever into pissing away a couple $1 million in the misguided hope that their fucking grandkids would like Jesus as much as Minecraft if only Jesus had his own video game. And if developers could reliably pull that off in 2006, just imagine how much easier it is in the days of crowdfunding. And that brings us to our final game, the perpetually upcoming I Am Jesus Christ.
Ooh, please be a schizophrenia simulator.
It's so very close. No,
I feel like it is.
This one is a first-person Messiah simulator where you play as Jesus. You get to do fun stuff like get baptized, perform miracles, craft new items with your carpentry skills, and of course, fight Satan. The prologue is available on Steam, and if you just send them a little bit more money, why, I'm sure they'll be able to program the rest of the game. And listen, I know I've tossed out a lot of shit your way in this episode, but please do yourself a favor. Seek out the trailer for I Am Jesus Christ And let me just say in advance, you are welcome.
I feel like there's got to be like the DLC where you beat a fig tree to death and you spit in the old guy's eye and stuff.
It would be like the bonus stages in Street Fighter 2, right? But with a fig tree instead of a car. Yeah. No, I like it.
Exactly. And if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, No Illusions, what would it be?
It's the same thing I learn every goddamn week in GAM. I'm in the wrong line of work.
And are you ready for the quiz?
That I am.
All right, Noah, other than Dance Dance Revelation, which of the following was the most obvious idea that was missed by Christian video game companies? A, Immortal Kombat. B, The Way, the Truth, and the Half-Life. C,
Nicely done.
Qbert Anon. Or D, Candy Crush.
I think you're trying to distract me with C because you know that Qbert is my favorite classic video game. I'm going to go D, Candy Crush.
Well done. That's correct.
All right, Noah, what should I name my atheist video game to get in on our market? A, There Is No God Because of War.
Oh, because God of War. I get it.
God
Okay.
of War.
Problem.
Yes, sure.
The other ones are better. B,
No, are they?
Just Cosmos. C, Daniel Dennett of Thieves.
I don't think
Or
most
D,
people are getting any of these. Go ahead.
These
No, go
are
ahead.
great. These are fantastic. This is the best work I've done
It
in
is.
months. Or D, Battletoads, because there's no way a loving God exists in the same universe as that video game.
Battletoads was great. It was just too fucking hard.
It's
So it
fucking
can't be
hard.
that.
Jesus.
Such a
Yeah.
fun game.
I'm going
So
with
hard.
B, Just Cosmos.
Gymnastic.
It's the only good one. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
How dare you?
Noah, we learned about religious crowdfunding for video games. What is the best name for religious crowdfunding?
Oh, okay.
A, Christian Indiegogo. B, Patreon. C, Kickmartyr. Or D,
Yes.
D, tithing.
Oh, nice. Well done,
Yeah,
sir.
'cause that's
Oh, shit. There's
crowdfunding
some
too,
really
so.
good ones there.
Martyr is
I'm going to have to go with C, Kick Martyr, because that's fucking
you
brilliant.
are correct. Kickmartyr it is.
Oh, all right. Well, Heath, Cecil,
Yeah.
What?
you said kick martyr, so you win.
I was holding an envelope up to my head, and he knew what I was going to say.
Right,
It's
right,
Heath.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
what's in the envelope. It's
Check
Heath
your
next to it.
wallet. It's me.
All right. Well, for Heath, Noah, Cecil,
Who's next week?
and Tom, Heath, Cecil says that.
I already said.
Yeah,
it's Heath. I
you
said
said it.
Heath is
Oh, I
next
missed
week.
it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like,
Say my
Jesus.
name again, damn
I'm
it.
next. No, that's cool. I agree to be. I'm on it. Nice.
All right. Well, for Heath,
Like
and Heath. I'm Heath.
Well,
Thanking you for hanging out with us
Boiled.
today. We'll be back next week, and by
Machine.
then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear us push back against the many and varied forces of theocracy on our shows, God-awful movies, Scathing Atheist, Cognitive Dissonance, The Skeptocrat, Dear Old Dads, and D-. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with Heath, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.